Hi, today it is my great honor to have as a guest on my channel Salah Bayaziddi to talk about Iran and Iranian Kurds. Salah Bayaziddi is the U.S. representative of the Komala Party of Iranian Kurdistan. Following the Iranian Revolution in 1979, Mr. Bayaziddi, he was a young sympathizer for the Komala Party. He became an activist in the Kurdish struggle. In 1982, he was arrested by the Iranian security forces. He survived 2 years of torture and solitary confinement. He fortunately was released from prison and ended up settling in Canada. And he has been active ever since in Kurdish causes and human rights in Iran, really for over 35 years. And he was elected in 2017 to a leadership position as member of the Central Committee of the Kamala Party. Mr. Bayaziddi, thank you very much for coming on. It really is an honor to be able to have this opportunity to speak with you and to hear everything you have to say. I want to begin with some really basic stuff here, just because I think it'd be useful for the audience as well as for myself. So this, I guess it's a dumb question, but let's go for it. Who or what are Kurds?
First of all, Michael, thank you for having me on your show. It's a great honor to be here. The Kurds, at the basic, Kurds are the largest ethnic group of nationality, stateless nation. The number is in debating, but at least they should be over 40 million. The Kurd currently being divided among 4 countries: Iran, Turkey, Iraq, and Syria. But the big pocket of Kurds also live throughout these countries. For example, over nearly 2 million of Kurds live in northeastern of Iran, 1,000 miles away from their homeland. The million Kurds live in throughout Europe, mostly Western Europe. So the Kurds are quietly indigenous people to their homeland. We can find the name of the Kurds throughout ancient history, like for ancient books like Xenophon, wrote about 10,000 Greek mercenaries who returned from the Persia, how they had a hard time to fight the people who live in the mountain. So the Kurds believe as their ancestor. So the Kurds quite been as indigenous nation or people who live throughout this their homeland, but unfortunately they will not be able to have an own nation state for the reason maybe we can talk later on through different questions.
Sure, thank you. So how many Kurds did you say were in Iran?
The number of the Kurds always I said is debating. And when I started my PhD in dissertation, because my dissertation is about a solution to Kurdish conflict, federalism or secession, so I had to go to look for a number of the Kurds, because Kurd mostly located in 4 provinces of Western Iran, from top province up West Azerbaijan, which is shared by the Kurds and the Azeris, province of Kurdistan, province of Kermanshah, Ilan. As said, Kurds live throughout Iran. But I had to go through the different government files, council files, provincial files, to find look exact number of how Kurd be. But my estimate, the Kurd in Iran at least should be between 10 to 12 million out of 90 million Iranian, which means something roughly between 13 to 15% of total population.
So the Kurdish community in Iran, they speak Kurdish in addition to Farsi?
Yes, since Iran nation state, modern nation state, formed in early 20th century, they provided the education in mother tongue. So the Kurds not being allowed for over a century, to be educated in mother tongue. But the Kurdish culture, Kurdish history, Kurdish languages survive through the songs, through the, to daily discussion among the people. Yes, Kurds, most of them, or I can say majority of them, still they speak Kurdish, but we have different dialogues, because Iranian Kurdistan is a very large portion, so it's a big 4 provinces. Of course, still we have other ethnic groups are living beside the Kurdish regions. So then that also can make a fact.
Are all Iranian Kurds Muslim?
Iranian Muslim, I can say majority are Muslim, divided between Sunni and Shia, but also we have other religious minority, as we have a big number, like Jewish, lived in the Kurdistan. I know, unfortunately, most of them now, they left, to Israel, probably prior even I born. But like my city, I remember there was Senegal who deserted, to the Jews. There were Armenian also, like Christians. There were also, we have other ancient Kurdish religion, like Yarsan. Yarsan is similar to the Yazidi Kurds, but they live in Iraqi Kurdistan. So the quiet, the Kurdish society in Iran, quiet, is a multi-religious society, tolerant society. So it's give them quiet character, if you live in the currently, unfortunately, we're living in the Middle East, there is seemingly a lot of conflict is over religion.
Thank you. Could you say something about the status of Kurds under the late Shah?
As I referred, Kurds, even though sometimes the argument the Kurds did not have an open state, before, but the Kurds until late 19th century, I'm talking about Iranian Kurds, late 19th century, they have own principalities, So Iran never been a unified country. Even throughout the ancient time, we're talking about king of the kings, So there was the Kurdish kingdom, Kurdish principalities, even though throughout history, 1514, the Battle of the Children between the Ottomans and the Safavid, divided Kurdistan to two parts at the time, 500 years ago. But still the Kurdish principalities survived until 19th century. Early 20th century, with the coming to the Pahlavis, because at the early 20th century, Iranian tried to form new parliament. I'm talking about 905 constitutional revolution, which did not survive. It ended up to the Pahlavis dynasty. So from there, they had an idea there, to unified country through one language, one flag. Everybody talked the same language to form, despite or hide other nationalities, because Iran is a multi-ethnic country. It's not just about the Persia. And we have it in Iran. We have Kurds, we have Turks, Baluch, Arab, other groups, but the Kurds being at the direct target of the new nation state, which is in Iran built, and there's been harsh time for the Kurds from there. But the Kurds eventually, at the end of the Second World War, they created the Kurdistan Republic in Mahabad, which did not survive. But then they continued their struggle until 1979 Iranian Revolution. So Kurds, they had a quiet, harsh oppression period, throughout the Pahlavis dynasty.
And then what happened with the Iranian Revolution in 79?
Okay,
Islamic
Iranian
Revolution.
Yes, Iranian Revolution, from there, Kurdish society have been changed prior to Iranian Revolution. So 100 young Kurdish university students throughout Iran. Iranian Kurds also joined the revolution, joined to demonstration in the hope they might have a new democratic country. They might enjoy the freedom. They have like education in mother tongue. They have the local government. They have a share what is the country, not to become a second-class citizen, which is throughout the Pahlavis dynasty. But when the revolution, just days after revolution, just imagine, day after revolution, we have I think 4 or 5 weeks after revolution, we have a bloody Nowruz called, it's very famous name, because the government and IRGC, to our early stage, they bombed the Kurds in the Kurdish city of Sanandaj, the capital of the Kurdistan. So from there, Kurds, and in reality, Islamic revolution did not happen in Kurdistan at that point. The Kurd society was quite different what happening in Tehran. While in Tehran, the intellectual believe they see the picture of the Khomeini and the moon, the Kurdish society had a different idea how the direction of the country be. But eventually, Khomeini did not tolerate what's happening in the Kurdistan. And August 1979, he declared fatwa of jihad against the Kurd. Just imagine, in the 1979 Iranian army, it was still they had big, vast weapons, American weapons at the time, which were new. So they were very acute, very armed. So plus IRGC, plus religious people. So there's 100,000 attacked the Kurds. From that point, the Kurds forced to go to armed struggle. So armed struggle, it lasted for a decade, the bloody conflict, killed thousand people, many young people and civilian been executed. But unfortunately, it was the time when it was the Cold War era. It was Iraq-Iran war, 8 years war. So people turned blind eye on what's happening in Kurdistan. So that was how Kurds started with Islamic revolution.
Thank you. I don't recall reading anything about the plight of the Kurds during the revolution. I read a lot about Iraq, right, and Saddam Hussein gassing Kurds in Iraqi Kurdistan and committing terrible atrocities, but I never really heard much about Iranian Kurds during this period. I guess it's like we were all distracted by other things, so it was like it was not in the press. So thank you for telling me about this, because frankly, it's totally new to me. So let's get up to today, though. There's a war between Iran and the United States and sometimes Israel. The question I want to start with is a regime change possible? Either a new government or perhaps just modifying the government so that it behaves differently vis-a-vis Kurds?
Michael, I just talked about how in 1979, maybe big chunk of Iranian people, I'm not saying majority because the Kurds and maybe probably a lot of people not be included, they thought could see the face of Khomeini, one of the manic of the 20th century in the moon. But from there, Iranian little, step by step, realize, this is not the way, the path where they should go. We've seen last 15 years, 20 years, a lot of Iranian try to, through the elections, changing the government, to people who called reformists, try to change this government. But eventually, we saw the several bloody uprising, throughout last 15 years. We saw the woman life freedom uprising, a couple of years ago. So from there and until just 6 months ago, prior to the 40 Days War, we saw a number of probably between, as President Trump said, 52,000 people being killed and 1,000 more injured and being detained. So what we see, this regime has lost its legitimacy by majority of Iranian. Majority Iranian, whatever ethnicity or religious they are. By many estimate, I saw something between 5 to 6, less than 10% still probably they support this regime. Even 5%. 5% after 19 million is a big number, is millions. So probably, and these people are, while majority of Iranian are poor, become poor because the regime policies, but these small groups, they can pay well. They can feed, same as the Iran's regime is the proxies, in the region, while Iranian are, poor, they cannot afford the basic daily life they need. But Iranian regime rebuilding Hezbollah cities in South Lebanon, or creating Hashd Sha'bi in Iraq, or creating Fatimiyyun of the Shia Pakistan. So yes, this regime can change is possible. But I think the Iranian people, they need support. They need the support, because this regime, just today I heard from one of the Iran's IRGC commander, they were talking about possibility if the U.S. forces take over some Kark or some island in South, we're going to bomb our land, So these people can use anything. They don't hesitate. If they have atomic bomb, they have whatever, they will going to use it against their people, the region. So we hope, and I believe the regime changes is possible.
Concretely, though, and I've heard this before from others, saying the United States needs to support the people of Iran, which certainly, as an American, I applaud the idea. I would love to do that. Sounds great to me. But concretely, How do we support the people of Iran so that their lives become better? How do we do that?
I just it reminded me just a minute ago. You said you'll not much hear about the Kurds at the early post-Iranian revolution of people, and it was the reason. Unfortunately, since 1975 in the West and probably in the United States, we mostly hearing about Iran's, threat as an Islamic threat factor to the region. We hear how they, the hostage, U.S. diplomat, how they took hostage. Then we hear how they terrorized, people, massacring U.S. Marines in Lebanon, 1983. Then we hearing about nuclear threats, nuclear proliferation, Iran. We're not hearing about plight of Iranian people, what they want, until I think 6 months ago, for the first time, when the President Trump started, talk about Iranian people, talk about, these people can get help, So the first time, I remember in 2009, when was the Green Revolution at its highest, there were rumors, or there were talk. President Obama, wrote a letter to Khamenei. So a lot of Iranians were upset about that. I heard, I think last year, in the discussion, President Obama said he regret about that he could probably, it was better if he undertake different policy. But so this complication of Iranian issue about nuclear, about proxies, about regional conflict, is not probably giving enough chance to paying attention to the plight of Iranian. That's a problem. So, but we as our protocol party, we have tried to. Myself, I'm here 15 years. To have tried to to discuss my conversation, American audience, with the administration, with the Congress, with the think tanks, so discuss how the Iranian people, including the Kurds, want this regime change. They want to be friend with the United States. They want to friend with Israel, with the region, with everyone. We don't want to, be revolutionary government forever.
Some people have said that the war, at least the way it's been conducted, has had the opposite effect from whatever was desired. In other words, it has actually strengthened the regime and maybe rallied people behind the regime. Because, of course, nobody, even if you don't like your government, nobody likes being bombed by foreigners. That's normal and natural and human. What are your thoughts on that? Like, has this saved the regime? Has it strengthened the regime?
Prior to 12 days war and maybe 4 days war, there was in debating, some people, they're saying maybe limited airstrike can benefit the regime, so the regime can gather nationalistic ideology, even though regime had tried those tricks. But I think both 12 days war and 40 days war, which took place, both, and now if you call it third round war, I'm not sure, the strikes, they damaged regimes badly, because they killed Khamenei. It was in power for 37 years. He was behind every decision making, killed the top leaders of the IRGC. It damaged his regime capability to connect to other proxies in the region. Syria is gone. But even though we still, there is some rings of IRGC connection with certain proxies in the region, they still have their power. But I agree that this war badly shrank the regime's capability to do whatever in the region. And even there was news about they were so close to have a nuclear bomb. So I think it was quite quite effective, but maybe it was not enough. What I am seeing, now the world is arriving at the point this regime really cannot have a coexistence, be at a peaceful coexistence with the West, with the neighbor, after what they've done, recently. If the world entirely for the 47, 6 years closed its eyes, as regime is capable to do to its people, to its region. But now they're seeing at the live, this regime, is not going to be rehabilitated. It's not going to be normal factor come back to the international community.
Okay, so maybe this brings us to the subject of the Memorandum of Understanding. Now, to be honest, I don't know if the Memorandum of Understanding is at all relevant given what's happening at the moment. So I don't know if that text matters to anybody anymore. But, and I know you've written about this. What is your sense of the Memorandum of Understanding? I mean, again, because I've read your op-eds, like I know that you're very skeptical. But I get the impression from you that like the Memorandum of Understanding in effect couldn't work, among other things, because of the idea that this regime simply is not compatible, if you will, with being a good neighbor and being a normal country.
Yes, we should understand, Michael, this regime is not even North Korea, North Korea, dictator is a threat to the world and Far East Asia. It's not even Soviet Union at the time. We accepted a certain time to have peaceful coexistence with that regime, those systems. This regime is a capitalistic. They want to end of the world. They have an ideology to come to. They say creating the mosque in the White House. These people are crazy, manic people. They do whatever to achieve this goal. They can cheat. They can lie. Which is, you see in their books, and the Shia beliefs, they can lie. So we should not. I'm so amazed, Western country or probably United States official at the time, they believed Khamenei fatwa is a haram, is a taboo, nuclear proliferation. Why should believe that one when this regime is currently just I saw. I think it was Financial Times. They saying this regime hiding centrifuge somewhere in the mountains in Iran. So this is regime we are dealing with that. If we have it, I know we are probably U.S. It was a very complicated situation. We had the 2 wars in the Middle East, Iraq, Afghanistan. It was disaster. Trillions is lost seemingly for no reason. Many service members of the U.S. and a man and woman lost for those costly war. And boot on the ground become a taboo in the Washington for Democrat, Republican, and people, everyone. So public. So President Trump come to with mandate, want to end all the wars. All wars, but seemingly it's not easy, it's not that easy to end the war. But one of the way to finish this war is really finish this regime, I believe. At least to bring it to its knees, we are now, as a regime calculated, so there probably the people say the Trump administration, its economy is very bad in the U.S. Gas prices high. We are approaching the World Cup, which is a big event in the U.S. We are approaching the midterm election in November. So all this thing, and plus we are going to after 2027 to primary, for the presidential election. So all these things coming. So they cannot be touched. So they can do whatever they want. Maybe some of those issues are right, but after MOU signed, after what the world see, this regime, cannot be trusted. We cannot leave. I don't know. My opinion. That's my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot leave this regime, to the status quo, because this is related to how the United States want to deal with the biggest threat in the Far East Asia, with China, to Russia, happening with Ukraine. So this is really all this adversary watching the United States. I know this war may be in bigger conflict, but I think we at the first day we started this war, Epic Fury, February 28th, we should have really clear strategy what we want to bring this regime. This regime is not going to be much easy. This is not Venezuela model. This is not Iraq war, 3 weeks war, this is quite different. This big West country, but I think it's costly, I know, but this is worth it, because isolation is United States is not going to help, because we are a big country, we are economy throughout the world. America is important for its policy throughout the world. I know it's very, very complicated. I wish I could find a peaceful solution for this conflict. But we have also experienced, in 2015, when we signed JCPOA, $1 billion cash went to this regime. Many big companies, they tried, they thought maybe they're going to invest it. Iranian people were happy. Maybe finally we are doing good, so Iran going to back to the international community. But what happened? What happened to those money? Those money were not spent at, for Iranian people, for development of money spent for the rebuilding the Hezbollah in the South Lebanon, creating Hash-Sha'bi in the Iraq. Who sees now become big factor and the threat to the. So it is. Really, yes, I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical, and seemingly we are arrived at that point. It's very difficult to find a solution for this conflict. This is we wait and should see how things turn out.
It sounds like you're calling for the United States to act, to do more vigorous, drastic actions to bring the regime to its knees. On the other hand, as you acknowledge, there are all sorts of reasons why the Trump administration probably doesn't want to do any of those things. Politics, the midterm elections, the cost of gasoline. So it's sort of like it's stuck.
I think we had a momentum, at the start of Epic Fury. We were at least 3-4 months ago, but I still believe, United States can bring this regime. Maybe I know European, world, they are worried about what happened if Iran, this regime fall, what happened to become a failed state, like what become they looking model up to Libya and Syria, Iraq, all those countries. But I think Iranian society is different. Just you see Iranian American community in the United States, in Europe, and throughout the world, and the Kurdistan region in Iran, they are very disciplined. So I think with the help of the United States, to bring this opposition, which is legitimate opposition, probably the transition to new government to either after, because this regime, this war is not ended to fall of this regime. This regime cannot survive at the hand of these people, because this regime just 6 months ago killed over 50,000 people. This regime cannot pay its bills, economically collapsed. It damaged badly, its economic infrastructure through this 12 days war and 40 days war. So probably this war is helping this regime keep this situation of the country and the security situation. But this one way or another, this regime is going to fall. But I think, I hope the United States has a plan A and plan B. Plan B probably would be to help to bring about the opposition together. So prepare for the transition. That can help not go to the stage of chaos. I know the United States probably, they have experience of Iraq, when they bring all the Chalabi, they talk everybody is a leader. This was not true. There's all this argument, but still, we are at the point. I'm going back to this question. At the point after 40 days war, after MOU signed, what is the next? What you cannot, you should leave it, whatever this regime can, do whatever they want the region, probably beyond, or do something about it with the help, but give a confidence, I think, to the regional power, U.S. allies, Gulf and Israel, probably. They believe this is the policy, this is the strategy. I think that can help.
At the beginning of the war, there was talk about arming Kurds. And it was strange because there was talk about it and then there was no talk about it. It was like a flirtation, like as if the Trump administration was maybe entertaining the idea for the first time, rather than something that they might have been thinking about for years or preparing for. What is your take on what happened? Like, was there ever a serious initiative on the part of the U.S. government to try to work with Kurds and then it got snuffed out, or the Kurds said no? I've heard one theory that Erdogan said, like, no way, and that was the end of that.
Michael, we talked about, when the war started, this war, 40 days war, at the first hour, everybody were talking about you cannot bring down a regime just by airstrike. Even ISIS is not defeated solely by airstrike. Houthi, after 10 years, airstrike still is there. So what's the solution? The solution is ground forces, boot on the ground. And administration and the Washington frequently saying, we're not going to send boot on the ground. It's just airstrike. So then they're looking for who's there, around there. So Kurdish forces, which has been now for over 2 decades in defensive mood, they could probably been, here very quite useful. The Kurds, we have their capability. They can at least, keep control of the Iranian Kurdistan from the chaos, from thing, and could be from that point, become a model throughout Iran, because through the periphery area, Iran, all ethnic groups, the Southern Arab, Baluch, so the Kurds are Western part. So I think from that point, that discussion come out. I know Turkey has it's a sensitivity to the Kurdish issue, to its Kurd, even though seemingly they have a peace process with the PKK. They have but still they have their objection to any Kurdish advance in Iran. Then it was a discussion. As we said, it was faded. Eventually, first President Trump said it's a good idea. Then in the next few days, he said Kurds should not be involved. They bring the death to themselves and to the region. So that was a short period. But I saw yesterday article. I think it was in Financial Times. They're discussing the Kurds. Probably the Kurdish forces and arming Iranian. Probably it should be looked at another option.
Mm-hmm. I saw, courtesy of your Twitter feed, you posted about IRGC strikes against Kamala Party camps. Could you speak a little bit about sort of repression of Kurds that's been going on since the beginning of the war?
Michael, as I said, it's been over 2 decades, the Kurds and Kamala Party not been engaged in the armed struggle, because we believe give the political solution, probably Iran can change happen, give to civil organization to be formed in Iranian Kurdistan, and armed it was imposed on us. But in Iraqi Kurdistan, in KRG, I don't know if you visited there, our forces stationed there, but it's not just military. There are thousand Iranian Kurds who are escaped the repression, they are political refugee or escaped, they are living there. Most of this camp are family of our party and family of other people who will live there. And these camps are under supervision of the UNHCR signed agreement 2023. But since this war and even 2023 and women life freedom movement being targeted by Iranian regime, our camps, I think the headquarters been targeted more than 90 times by drones, by the ballistic missile. And
these camps are in Iraq?
Yes, inside Iraqi Kurdistan, near the province of Alemannia.
So Iran's been attacking sites in Iraqi Kurdistan?
Daily, if I said at least a couple of times per day, not just us, 2-3 other Kurdish political parties, so that day at the 6 a.m., they used 7 ballistic missiles. So then that caused the death of the 9 members, of the Kamala Party members. And just I heard one of the injured died today. So the total number is now 10.
Looking ahead, that's something that we don't like to do in this business because we're always wrong. Like looking ahead, what scenario do you think is most likely? Let's say we're looking ahead 1 year, some sort of durable diplomatic settlement, large-scale war, just chaos.
Yeah, gosh, I wish I know what would be, how we are amazed, what happened after the October 7th, 2003, how the region completely changed, Iranian regime prior to that was talking, they are the 4 Middle Eastern capitals, in Damascus, in Beirut, in Baghdad, and Sana'a, how they are. I know they shrank, but still surviving, trying to adapting to the new situation. I'm hoping, I can see this regime, is a possibility to regime change or gradual stage is a big possibility. I don't see any peace deal be signed with this regime, because the regime just found out how the Strait of Hormuz is a is a valuable tool, a card in their hand, and now international community and even NATO and European country also coming. They seeing they cannot allow this regime control the Strait of Hormuz. So this is instead of we just the Strait of Hormuz now is as a top of those demand for the conflict. How about Iran's nuclear issue, Iran's the proxies? So it's a very complicated situation. But I just refer you to just 1 year ago when President Trump visited the Gulf countries, and those Gulf countries, they wanted to have a trillions investment in this region. How you can world can invest trillion when there is a crazy, a government, just leave them just miles away. So you can't have a hostage, trade, international trade, global trade. It cannot go on forever. I hope one day, I know everybody, we all like to live in a peace, prosperity, but eventually the international community and the world and the region, they should think about they have to pay the price for that. It's not easy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bayaziddi. Thank you for coming on. I found this very informative and very interesting. For those in the audience, also thank you very much. And as always, check out in the description, you have links to my social media, as well as to my Substack, which is also called Pax Americana. And that's it. Thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing everybody in my next video.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.